So, what if our whole idea of searching for God is, well, completely backwards? Today, we're going to unpack a concept that was considered absolutely scandalous 2,000 years ago. It's the idea of a God who doesn't just wait around to be found, but a God who actively, relentlessly goes searching for us.
And it all kicks off right here. You've got this religious teacher, Jesus, and he's causing a major stir. It's not just that he's welcoming social outcasts. No, he's actually sharing a meal with them. Now, for the religious establishment of the day, this was just unthinkable, a huge scandal. So you got to ask, what was the big deal?
To get why this was so shocking, we have to kind of step back in time and look at the social landscape. Let's paint a picture of just how radical this dinner party really was.
So on one side, you have the religious authorities, the Pharisees. And for them, the world was pretty black and white. Certain people were just hopeless cases. You were supposed to avoid them, keep them at a distance. But Jesus? He does the complete opposite. He doesn't just tolerate them. He actively seeks them out and invites them to dinner. And that right there, that's the source of the whole scandal. It's what the text calls the grumblings.
So let's talk about who these so-called outcasts actually were. The tax collectors, that one's pretty easy to get. They worked for the occupying Roman government and were famous for skimming off the top. So, yeah, they were seen as traitors, a really hated class. But this other category, sinners, was way broader than you might think. It wasn't just notoriously immoral people. It could also mean regular, working-class folks who just couldn't keep up with all the super detailed religious laws the Pharisees insisted on.
So how does Jesus respond to all this criticism? I mean, the religious leaders are fuming. Well, he doesn't get into some long, complex theological debate. Instead, he just tells three simple stories, and each one is designed to build his case, piece by piece.
Before we get into the ancient stories he told, the sermon we're drawing from gives us a couple of modern examples that make the point instantly. Imagine you lost your family puppy, or maybe a valuable diamond ring. Would you just shrug and say, oh well? Of course not. You'd search everywhere. You'd be relentless until you found it. That's the exact feeling Jesus is trying to tap into here.
So Jesus tells these three stories, back to back. First, a shepherd who leaves his 99 sheep to go find the one that wandered off. Then a woman who basically turns her whole house upside down looking for a single lost coin. And finally, a father who runs out to embrace a son who had totally disgraced the family. Do you see the pattern here? In every single story, something valuable is lost. And in every story, the owner spares no effort to find it, and then celebrates like crazy when it's found.
Now, it's pretty obvious these stories aren't really about lost stuff. They're designed to reveal something really radical, something about the very nature of God.
And this gets us to the heart of it all. The sermon calls it the scandal of divine seeking. See, the real shock wasn't the dinner party itself. It was what the dinner party implied. It implied that God doesn't just sit back and wait, but that he actively seeks out the lost. The Pharisees just couldn't imagine a God who would go searching for people that they had already decided were worthless.
This all leads to maybe the most powerful line from the sermon. The lost are not seekers. They are sought. They are found. Just think about that for a second. It completely flips the usual religious script on its head. This isn't a story about our search for God. It's a story about God's relentless search for us. The initiative, Jesus is saying, is all on God's side.
You know, there's a theological term for this whole idea, prevenient grace. It sounds kind of fancy, but it's a simple and really profound idea. It's the grace that goes ahead, the love that seeks us out, before we've done a single thing to earn it, before we even think to respond. It's proactive, not reactive.
Okay, so this is a beautiful idea in theory, but what does it actually look like in real life? Well, the sermon gives us two powerful, real-world examples of people who were sought and found. First up, there's a guy named Zacchaeus. He was the chief tax collector in his town, which means he was fabulously wealthy and probably universally hated. He was so shunned by the crowds, and apparently he was a short guy, that when Jesus came through town, he had to literally climb a tree just to get a look. So Jesus stops, looks up into the tree, and invites himself over to this man's house. Can you imagine? And this single act of being sought out, of being truly seen, it just sparks this incredible transformation. Zacchaeus stands up and pledges to give half his money to the poor and pay back anyone he cheated 4 times over. That is what being found looks like.
Now, if you think that's a big deal, Our second case study is even more extreme, the Apostle Paul. Before he was Paul, he was Saul, and he was one of the leading Pharisees. He wasn't an outcast, he was an insider who was an active, violent persecutor of the early Christians. He even called himself a blasphemer and a man of violence, and he was totally convinced he was doing God's will.
And yet, on the road to Damascus, this man is met by the very one he was persecuting. He is sought out, and his life gets completely turned around. The greatest opponent of the way, as early Christianity was called, becomes its most influential apostle. It's just a powerful testament to this idea that no one is considered too lost for the search.
And all of this leads to a really challenging pivot, where the sermon turns this 2,000-year-old story right back around on us today.
And here it is. Here's the uncomfortable question it forces us to ask ourselves. Who in our society have we quietly decided isn't worth the search? You know, it's so easy to judge the Pharisees, but that tendency to write people off as hopeless cases, man, it is still very much alive. Who are the people we've put on the margins?
And the sermon makes one last crucial point. Lostness knows no categories. It's not about your zip code or your bank account. You can be just as lost in an expensive home as you can be in a shanty town. See, being lost is really about being separated from a sense of love and purpose. It can be rooted in pride, in selfishness, in all kinds of things that can affect every single one of us.
And so, we'll end right there with this final provocative thought. Isn't it a scandal, in the best possible way, that this God of love doesn't give up? That the search continues for every single one of us, no matter how far we think we've strayed? It's a radical idea, and as the sermon says, it is very, very good news.